Welcome to Shortcuts to Mastery. I'm your host, Maria Henning, and in my universe, life is for growth and time is for bending. So hop in, my friend, buckle up, and let's get into it. Hello, my friend. Welcome back. This is the actual Venus sequence reading episode, and this is a great one if you are I'm just laughing because I thought that the previous episode was going to be the Venus sequence episode, and as I started to record this intro, I just ended up talking for an hour. And that was like 10 minutes ago. So now I'm recording this intro. But this is a fucking awesome episode because you are going to get to listen in on a almost 2-hour Venus sequence reading with my client Gina or my friend Gina, who won the giveaway of the podcast giveaway that I was doing when I launched it. And it's such a good fucking episode because we really get into it and you really get to have a peek into what my readings are like. And so if you are an aspiring Gene Keys reader, this will be valuable because you'll be able to kind of see how I do Gene Keys readings, and maybe that'll give you some inspiration for your own readings. And if you're a Gene Keys student, this will also be really valuable because you'll get to hear me really teach on the Venus sequence. Like, you'll get to hear me say what the sphere of life's, what the sphere of purpose is about, or what the sphere of EQ is about, and really give my tips on how to apply and make this stuff real and make this stuff applicable. And you'll get to hear me interpret a couple, 6 different gene keys for her and the lines. And so you'll get really a good taste and a really good bite of some of these teachings if you're learning the Venus sequence. And if you want to be able to do this on your own, either for yourself or for clients, then definitely consider checking out the Master Key, which is my certification style Gene Keys reader training, which begins on October 16th. Enrollment ends on Friday the 13th. And so if you want to become a Gene Keys reader too, if you want to be able to do this type of work for your clients, or if you just want to learn all of the theory of the Golden Path and really be able to apply it to yourself, then that is the program for you. All right, without any further ado, enjoy this Venus sequence reading. Yay! Hello, we're here. Welcome to Shortcuts to Mastery. This is a fun, special podcast episode because I have a live reading that I'm going to be recording for you today. And I have the beautiful Gina here. We're going to be doing her Venus sequence today. And so this is going to be a great episode for you to listen to if you want to get a lot of insights about what the Venus sequence is about. You'll definitely learn a lot about it. And then you'll get to sit in on a reading, which is something normally reserved for either the client who is having and receiving the reading, or if you're one of my students in a program and you get access to a whole video library of readings just like this one. So you get a little sneak peek. But enough about this. I want Gina to give herself a chance to introduce herself. So Gina, where are you from? What do you do? What are you up to? Tell us about you and where people can find you.
Hi, Maria. I'm super excited to be here with you today, receiving my Venus sequence reading. I'm originally from Chile, and I'm back in Chile, living currently in La Serena. I used to live in Australia for 10 years. That's where I met human design and the Gene Keys. And I got the chance to meet with Maria where I studied human design in my formation. She was one of my coaches. So now we are sort of reconnecting. I currently do human design readings in my country, Chile, and I feel like I'm opening space to this new amazing tool, and also for the Gene Keys. So I'm currently here with the fresh tool, fresh everything. And yeah, I feel like I'm on a mission for sharing this knowledge to the world, and in Spanish as well. So that's yeah. So opening this space for new, different culture, different countries, because we normally see this information in English. That's where I get it from. So I feel it's really important for me to share it in my mother language as well.
Yes, pioneer for sure. And whenever my mom tells me like, you need to like do this all in Spanish and like get this out to the Spanish community, I'm like, there's other people who are doing that already, and I will do that later, and I will support them and give them a voice. So what's your handle? Where can people find you?
At Arboleda .studio. Yeah. So again, at Arboleda .studio.
Yes, and I'll have it linked below so you guys can go check her out. And if you have any family members that only speak Spanish or friends or whatever, and you want to get them the language of human design as well, I may be doing that in the future, but I'm not doing it right now. And Gina is, and she's amazing at it. So definitely go check out Gina at arboleda.studio, linked below. Okay, let's get into this reading. How you feeling?
Amazing. Thank you.
Let's do
Excited.
it. Yes. So I am going to share my screen because I like to have a little guide up. Let me know once you can see your two readings next to each other. Can you see them?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, well, let's do this. So we're going to get into your Venus sequence today. And I always have a little intro page here. You already know who I am. This is what I do. We connected, we've already worked together before. This is where you can stay connected with me. But more importantly, I like to guide folks that I'm giving readings to on just some insights on how to receive this. So, kind of like I was telling you before, we're going to go through a lot of information today. And you've studied the Venus sequence with me before, or I was a support coach, right? Not the head coach, but we've worked together on this before, but it's still a lot of information. And so my invitation to you today is just relax and kind of know that this is all being recorded for you. You're going to get sent this. Obviously, you won the giveaway, and then you can listen to it on audio on podcast whenever you want, which is kind of convenient. And you have some access to ask me follow-up questions after as well. And so my tips for you are, if anything kind of piques your interest, write that term down, write the time at which it came up. Maybe you can go back and listen to that later. There's going to be extra resources for you at the end. We're going to be able to chat during the reading, but my main invitation is actually just to relax and receive. So if you're open to it, would you like to take a couple deep breaths and open up the space for the reading? Let's do it. All
Absolutely.
right. Awesome.
Mhm.
So you have been like sitting around all day or something. I mean, I know it's the morning, but you might need to get the wiggles out, maybe shake it out. And whenever feels
Absolutely.
good, yeah, whenever feels good, see if you can find some stillness wherever you're sitting and just take a really deep, clearing breath, just in through the nose. And then big exhale, release. Drop the shoulders, relax the face, the neck, the jaw. And now take another really deep breath, just like that, but slow it down a little bit, slower in through the nose. Make it longer, expanding the ribs, expanding the chest, the lungs. Sip a little bit more air in. And soft release. Relax the shoulders, soften the hands, the neck, and the jaw. And we take one more deep breath in, again, nice and slow. Breathing in whatever your intention is for today, maybe clarity and some light into the body. One last deep breath, slowing down and opening up to receiving the right insights at the right time in this reading today. All right, whenever you feel good, you can open your eyes. How you feeling?
Yeah, good. I was running before coming, so yeah, it feels
Yeah,
great.
it's nice to ground. I like to ground. This is also going to be a very meta episode for you guys listening who are readers. Um, I taught a whole Gene Keys or a whole class on how to read Gene Keys charts, so now you're going to get to see me put that in action. But also, I teach a whole course on how to do human design and Gene Keys readings as a business, and I teach my reading process, and so you're getting to see it in action. And one of those things is I like to ground for a session because we tend to be running around, and then we're going to be uh, you know, chatting about all these insights, and it's nice to open up the space. All right, let's do this. I'm excited. I love that you wanted to do the Venus sequence because I find that one is the one that is given the least amount of love. Because people are like, I just want to know about me and I just want to know about business. And it's like, well, we actually have this very long, not very long, it's just longer and the other two, and it's a little bit more complex. So we have this very important path, which is at the center of those two things. So if we look at, I have a visual up right here of the golden path. If we look at where the Venus sequence lies, it's the connecting point between the activation sequence, which is our four prime gifts and our personal self as a spiritual path, and then we have it connecting through the Venus sequence over to the Pearl sequence, which is all about career and business as a spiritual path. We have to actually master the realm of relationship if we then want to share our gifts with the rest of the world. So we look at self first, then we got to know how to do it with people, and then we can share it and get money for it. in a very simplified way. So that's what we're looking at with the Venus sequence. We're looking at relationships as a spiritual path. And we start with this sphere at the bottom here, the sphere of purpose, which in the activation sequence is really like your essence and kind of who you are in the sense of how you like the texture of the consciousness that you're here to express. And because that's really who you are, there's not too much about the gene keys of like this is who you are, except for really the sphere of purpose. It's like the energy with which you vibrate that sets up, as you can see, the foundation for the rest of the chart. See how it's at the bottom of the chart? The most important thing is for us to live our purpose, which is be ourselves essentially. And the sphere of our purpose is going to tell us a lot of insight as to what being ourselves really is about. And so that actually is a place where we start with the Venus sequence, because you got to be yourself and you got to stay committed to who you are in order to then be in relationship. And so that's where we get started. So let's take a look at the sphere of purpose a little bit more, and then your sphere of purpose in particular. So navigating the sphere of purpose in the Venus sequence, essentially you're being asked to commit to your purpose and open your heart, because our relationships are the main place that we compromise ourselves for. So you are, the purpose of Gene Key 8, the purpose of style, right? And that's when you do that on your own and in a room or in a reading right now, you're like, yeah, I'm style. And then your partner says something and you're like, and it's like those places, our relationships are the main place that we really compromise our magic for, because it's easy to, or we think it's easier to just like, oh, let me just bend to this person's will, or let me just do this or do that in order to make it easy. So that's the real path here is, can you just stay committed to who you are even in relationship? So let's talk about gate 8. We have this throat center gate, this gate of contribution. You have the right angle cross of contagion as your incarnation cross, and so this is one of the 4. This is the Taurus version of it, and so this is the energy to make a contribution, to be an example, or do something that makes a statement, often in a big way, and it's in an individual way because it's an individual circuitry. And so this gene key is called the diamond of the self. The shadow, which is mediocrity, it's going to show us our fear of being boring or mediocre, but the gift is going to shine a light on the truth that we're all incredibly unique and we all have our own unique, exquisite style of doing everything that we do. So that's a very mini baby teaching on the gene key. Let's navigate the shadow, gift, and city through the sphere, and then I'll give you some time to chat about each one. So we have the shadow, in this case, mediocrity. That's going to be the unique difficulty that you have in relationships, and it undermines your core stability and kind of pulls you into drama. So the shadow of purpose is really our first relationship challenge. And for you, it's going to be mediocrity. Mediocrity is being a victim of the mundane. If I feel like it's bad to be mundane, then I'm going to feel like I'm mediocre, like I'm not interesting enough. I don't say it in a cool enough way. I'm not special enough. I'm not pretty enough. My style isn't unique enough. There's something about me that is not enough. And that then is going to show up in either like a repressive way or a reactive way. So we have the repressive nature of wooden. So these people are like, well, if I'm not going to be interesting enough, then I'm just going to be super boring and whatever. And like, I just don't even fucking care. Very repressed, right? This is a life force that is very diminished. And then we have the reactive style of artificial, which is like, well, I'm not interesting enough, but like she looks kind of cool. So I'm just going to copy her and see what she's doing, because like she seems to know how to find her unique style. And it's this artificial, like, fake persona that isn't actually authentically you, because you feel like you at your core are mediocre. And so what that might look like in your relationships is you might feel like, you're getting into a relationship, either with your partner or with your client or something like that. And it's like, how do I like, drum myself up and judge myself up in order to look interesting enough so that I am worthy of love? And then that can cause certain things in your relationship. So just really quick, is any of that hitting? Does that resonate at all?
Absolutely, yeah. I totally feel the mediocrity in my relationships where when they actually feel mediocre, I felt
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I've been in a search of fulfilling relationships. And I can totally feel the wooden repressive shadow, because I'm also an Aquarius sun. And that
Right.
goes so, and like it's so available to me to be like, it
Yep.
was more than now, to be super cold and like that
Mm,
facade, like not easy to go through,
yeah.
so totally resonate.
Nice. Yeah, I love that. And Aquarius suns, I'm an Aquarius rising. It's like we want to be unique and we want to be special. And we want to be different than
Yeah,
everyone
yeah,
else because we're like
absolutely.
the alien.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so feeling mediocre is really like a death sentence to us.
Yes, that goes in hand. Yeah.
Yeah. But the gift
Yeah.
of this key, so within the gene keys, as you know, like every shadow contains a gift, and the shadow is just the fertile fodder, for the breeding ground. Breeding ground. That's a really weird way of saying that, but it's like the growing ground essentially for the gift. And the person that really like feels mediocre, like it's because they care about really being self-expressed and really being unique. People that don't care about being self-expressed are not going to feel mediocre. It's not something they care about. And this is really the teaching of the gene keys and why these things are unique to us and our unique gene keys. And so because you care about being the most authentic you can be, and really having that uniqueness shine through because you know that everyone is unique, including yourself, that's where that gift of style can really come through. But if you feel like you're a victim and you're not enough, you're going to be feeling the mediocre. But once we release the victimhood and you look and instead see, well, I'm not a victim of this. I don't have to try to be anything other than I am, and that's enough. That's when the gift of style becomes unlocked because we cannot move from a shadow to a gift without releasing victimhood. That's the jump. We have to stop being victims in order to actually unlock the gift. And so that's the gift of style. Style is this beautiful energy of like, I am unique and I am enough. And like my human genius on this plane is to be as authentically self-expressed as possible. And that gift in the sphere of purpose is going to, it's going to become unlocked when you shift from those old reactive patterns and instead surrender and recommit to your dharma. So much of the shadow patterns, specifically in the Venus sequence, come through a reaction, right? It's like maybe your partner doesn't like your I don't know your shirt today or something, and then you like react and you're like, I knew I was mediocre or whatever, when instead it's like, I don't know what example the better example would be, but instead of reacting, how could you instead be like, you know what, fuck it, like I'm gonna wear this shirt, I don't care if you don't like it, like that's my dharma and my purpose, and I love that you were able to say that you don't like it, but I'm still gonna wear my unique style or my unique shirt or haircut or whatever. And so essentially what this is saying, if we make it a little bit more grounded in the teaching of purpose, the gift of your purpose is like the gift that you bring to all relationships, and the thing that makes you you and attracts people to you in all of your relationships is this, and makes you really grounded essentially in relationships, is that beautiful gift of you're just yourself. And your friends and your family and the people that love you probably are like, I just love Gina, she just is herself, like all the time. And like, I just am so inspired by her, and I love just how committed she is to her own unique style. They might probably won't use those like specific like Gene Keys words, but there's something about your uniqueness that's really attractive. And that should feel like a grounding force because this is unconscious earth. It's purpose. We're leaving the path of core stability in the activation sequence. And so it's really like a grounding force. And like I was showing, it's the foundation of the chart. And so I'll finish with exquisiteness and then I'll see what you have to say. We have this Siddhi here, this Siddhic frequency of exquisiteness. And so if we want to move from shadow to gift, we have to release victimhood. That's the first step. When humans who are at their state of human genius and service cannot be victims. That's that teaching. But if we want to move from gift to Siddhi, if we want to go from like a state of human genius to a state of enlightenment, there needs to be a process of surrender. And always a surrender process is the surrender of the ego. So it's like an ego death experience. And so the way I like to, everyone's had this experience if you've meditated at least once, and really had that moment, when you're meditating and you're like, oh my God, we really are all connected, and wow, everything is beautiful and everything is love. Have you had a moment like that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's like a taste of the Siddhic frequency, which is like we are all connected. It is all love. It is all the same. It is all beauty. And so exquisiteness, and when you feel like we are all one, you've lost a little bit of that illusion of separation. And that's how you know you're kind of navigating the Siddhic realm. So exquisiteness as a Siddhic frequency is like there's no illusion of separation anymore. It's not just about Gina and the human plane being her own unique style. It's actually like that ego shell is gone and you're seeing the exquisiteness of everything and everyone. And it's like, here's what I'll always say about cities. Once we get into the acidic frequencies, just mumbo jumbo is going to come out, because it's really hard to describe in the English language or in Spanish, whatever language you're speaking. It's hard to put into human language an experience like that unless you've actually had that experience. So that's a little bit about exquisiteness, and the acidic frequency of your purpose is going to be the physical embodiment of your purpose, of your dharma, at that physical level, which sets the foundation for everything else. And it's the return to the most authentic version of your heart, which is you're someone that you see the exquisiteness of everyone around you. And you seeing that in them and you living that on your own is like the foundation for your relationships, essentially, and the most grounding thing you could offer. And it's not even about like, here's what I'm going to offer to you, love me. It's just like, it's just who you are, it's just like how you live. Any quick thoughts on style and exquisiteness before we chat about the line?
I was just reflecting that it was such a relief when I first learned this information, both
Nice.
for my activation and also for my Venus sequence, because when I was growing up, the style thing also always felt like a separation. It felt in separation, like I was unique but different, the different part. And I also feel that was accentuated by my, like I said, Aquarius sun, but now that I know, I own it, and I really feel seen in my relationships through my style. I don't have to give explanations to anyone. I'm just myself, and I feel I can embody that. And it's like allowing myself, to be myself and express what I want to, like, dress myself the way I want or do things the way I like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. And you feel seen in that, which is amazing. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. Yeah. This is a cool key. I've done a lot of readings for contagion people. And this one is like an important one for folks, because it's like, oh, I really feel seen in the fact that I really do want to be like unique and authentic and everything like that. So it's fun. Okay. So you're a line 6 here, and the lines in the Venus sequence go really deep. There's like shadow keynotes and gift keynotes, and there's reasons we're in the shadow and whatever. That none of the other sequences have this intense of line teachings. So that's why this reading is like, not only is it always longer because there's 2 more spheres to cover, the lines are like 5 times as in depth. So the line keynotes of the sphere of purpose are going to show us our role in relationships and how we kind of like, it's going to shed a light on some of our challenging behavioral patterns, and then some of the better behavioral patterns that make us really, loved and seen in relationships. And so the line is going to go line 6, like you are, the 3-6. The shadow is about being the judge, and the gift is about being the visionary. So the shadow is really judgment. This is repressively, either you become just aloof and uninterested because you're line 6s, right? You have that bird's eye view perspective, and you're just like, oh, these people don't get it. I don't care. I don't fucking care. Whatever. Like, they can go fuck themselves. And because you see beyond, right? So you're like, who cares about future generations? I don't care. And then reactively, you're like this intellectual, like know-it-all person that's like, no, you should be doing it like this. No, you should be doing it like that. Because you can see, how to do it. And you've had that experience through your 3 stages of life as a 6. And the main block is really excluding yourself through your judgment of it all. And that's part of that double exclusion that you were talking about before, of like your style and then the Aquarius sun. It's like a triple down, actually, of excluding yourself. Like, I'm so different. And that always shows up with the line 6. The line 6 feels very different than everyone else. It's the latest line that we have gotten in terms of the profiles. It's always it's the newest. It's the one that's seeing beyond. The rest of us are like focused on the now and like this lifetime, and the line 6s are like, no, but like generations ahead, like think of the vision. And so we don't always see eye to eye with line 6s, and so you might feel really excluded, and that comes and then with that comes like a judgment of everyone else around it. And so that's like kind of the worst of the worst in you in relationships, is like, I'm not interesting enough, and like they're not interesting enough, and they're mediocre, and I know it all, and I'm just going to exclude myself because I'm not special enough, or they're not special enough, or whatever. This is a very simplistic way of describing it, but it's like that could be, one of the some of the keynotes of like the challenges that you might face in relationships. But then we have this beautiful gift of visionary, which gets this inner strength of actually being able to include yourself at every level of life, right? Which is part of the gift of the line 6 is like, I'm in the experimentation phase, I'm in the observing phase, I'm in the coming down phase. Like, you can include yourself at all those places. The outer strength, no surprise here, being a role model to others. And the highest potential is really your trust in life, because you have that surrender to like life's process, helps others trust themselves. And so the sixth line finds core stability once it can learn to trust itself and trust others and trust their process and timing, and even trust their own lack of feelings sometimes. And so that repressive nature is going to shift from detaching from others into the inner strength of welcoming and including themselves no matter what. The reactive nature is going to move away from disempowering others through intellect to the outer strength of instead being a role model through their deep trust of timing and life and themselves. And the shift here is like just being aware of like, why am I in this state of judgment? I actually do care. I don't want to just be a know-it-all and be aloof and uninterested. Like, I actually have a lot of wisdom to offer, and I care, and I'm going to model that. And so at the highest gift level in terms of your purpose, the most, in the activation sequence on your own, you're like the intent of style, that's who you are, the cells, the physical like essence of style. That's like who you are in the world. And then in your relationships, you have this really beautiful visionary role model. So like, you model for us how to trust, essentially, and trust in the process of life and trust in yourself throughout it, and trust in timing. And the way you do it is with such a unique style. And that's really like grounding for you. And then that's also the foundation of your relationships too. Cool. Feeling good?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Yay. Love it. I wish we could chat so much more about all of this, but if we did, we would be here for a very long time.
You said it perfectly. What I'm going through
Oh,
right
good.
now, you
Oh,
just said
cool.
it.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I love it. Amazing. So from here, we're going to navigate this pathway of Dharma. And the pathway of Dharma is the relationship between the sphere of purpose and the next sphere up, which is the sphere of attraction. So we have the sphere of purpose, this like unconscious earth, this like rooted, grounded, kind of motherly archetype. And then we have this unconscious moon, which is this magnetic eldest daughter archetype that we're going to see here in a second. And the the pathway of Dharma is just saying, are you going to commit to your purpose, or are you not? What are you going to do? Are you going to commit to your purpose and actually attract the right people into your life, which is what we're going to see in the attraction sphere? Or are you going to feel like you're trapped? The shadow keynote of the pathway of Dharma is the trap. Do you feel like you're trapped into having to be style, having to be the visionary, right? Does that feel like a death sentence? Or a prison sentence? If so, that would be a victim state and a state of suffering and shadow. So it's either Dharma or drama. We want to get into, I'm actually going to choose this. And then we get over to the sphere of attraction, which is unique in the Gene Keys Golden Path, in the sense that every other planetary placement, we see both the conscious and the unconscious aspect of it. So we have like conscious and unconscious sun, unconscious and unconscious earth. We have both Venuses, both Mars, both Jupiters. But the Venus, in the Venus sequence, the moon stands alone. We just see the unconscious moon placement in the sphere of attraction. So let's talk about the sphere of attraction really quick. It's really in depth. There's a lot here. It offers us a contemplation on our relationship chemistry, our sexuality, our creativity, magnetism, and fortune. It's quite a mystical contemplation. It's really this attractor field that surrounds us and draws people and relationships towards us according to our Dharma and our karma. So, due to its magnetic nature, it's also going to show us some of our unconscious motivations around our desires. So think of like magnetism as in like the moon and the push and the pull with the tides of the earth, right? It's this kind of magnetic force. And it's this like feminine force. It's doing its own thing, its own cycle. And so that's where we get some of those keynotes coming in here. So let's talk about the gate that you have here, and then we'll navigate it again, shadow, gift, and city with the context of the sphere. We have gate 9, which is the gate of focus and detail in the sacral center. This is the power and the energy to remain focused. It's an energy that's driven to repeat and experiment. And you might feel restless at times, but you have the potential to generate a tremendous amount of energy if you can channel it in a focused direction, like with using essentially tuning into a correct sacral response for you and putting energy into a correct sacral yes. But the shadow of this key is called the power of the infinitesimal. It's a beautiful gene key. This is one of those that I don't have, but I contemplate often. The shadow of this gene key speaks to the inability to get started or shift directions due to the overwhelm of the task. That's inertia. But the gift is the power to take one small step at a time, which in turn makes you invincible, which is the Siddhi. So let's chat about it and we'll get into all the things. So, specifically with the sphere of attraction, the shadow of the sphere of attraction is going to show you your hidden motivations within your desires, both sexually and materially. So, what does that mean? Essentially, when we're wanting something with a weird agenda, then we're going to be using the shadow of our attraction to try to get it because it's not really correct for us. So, for example, with inertia being like, I'm overwhelmed. I'm a victim of details, right? We have reluctant is like, I can't even get started. It's too much. Like, I'm afraid, like there's too many details and therefore I'm going to melt on the couch for like a whole day. That's inertia and then the repressive nature. Or it's diverted, which is the reactive nature of like, I'm in a million different directions, a million different places, da 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 da. But both of those, think of the physics of inertia. An object at rest will stay at rest, or an object in motion will stay in motion unless something changes it. And so the diverted is, or sorry, the repressive nature of reluctant is there's nothing pushing me to get started. Like I am just here in inertia. I am at stillness. I am overwhelmed. I am melting into the couch. I cannot do anything. And then the diverted is I'm all over the place, but there's no change in the speed. You're not slowing down, you're not speeding up, you're just at that one velocity of speed of overwhelm, of diverted energy. And it's because you're a victim of details. It's too much, it's too overwhelming. And so that is like what you do till if you have like going back to the attraction shadow, it's like we use the shadow of our attraction to get things in a shadowy way. The way this could show up for you, for example, is like, let me think of an example with this. Like, I'll just share my example really quick and then that'll help me to like follow through. So my shadow here is dishonesty. It's gate 59. So if I want something and I know that it's like, I don't know, maybe not good for me, I'm going to like lie to get it. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to use dishonesty to get it. And so in this case, I don't know, I can't think of a good example of you getting something that I don't know, that is not aligned for you. Maybe like, okay, here's a good example. If you are trying to get external validation for your unique style, right? But it's this artificial style that you made up. Then the way in which you do that might be this like weird diverted thing of where you're like, I don't know, I'm so overwhelmed. I have to post something today. And then I also have to like take a photo in this place and I have to get this person to like take the photo and then comment on it. And it's like, there's too many details and it's too overwhelming, but it's all because you have this weird agenda around not a pure desire. Does that make sense? Is there a better example in your life that's coming up for you?
No, that could be a good one,
Okay.
actually. But I've experienced the repressive shadow before, like being overwhelmed and not moving, not experiencing
Right.
determination, like I'm actually in that point right now with my social media,
I was
like
going to say, yeah.
there's so much to do. There's so many things I could do. I better not do anything until I feel inspired.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually an even better example, honestly. It's like, yeah, it's like if you what's the reason you want the social media? Is it only for just pure business purposes and that doesn't actually light up your sacral? Then that's going to feel overwhelming and then you're going to be
Absolutely.
reluctant to get it started. But if social media, like why do I love social media so much? Just as an example, this might shift something for you. It's because it's my like safe community. It's my safe space to be myself, and it's a place where I get to create art projects all day. Like me getting to design all my carousels is like one of the greatest joys of my life. And like I co-work with a friend of mine who's here right now and I'm always like, look at my branding. She's like, I'm just a PhD student, I don't care. Like it's like a really joyful like experience for me. And so because it's just more than just business, it's a self-expressive place, it's a place to connect, it's a place to socialize, it's a experimental ground. I have another, it's a more of a pure desire, which is actually where the gift is. So hopefully that maybe that gave you some insights. That's a total aside of social media thoughts and coaching. But the gift here of attraction is really going to show us the innocence in our desires, where that lives, and where we can claim our desires from a pure place, where it's actually something that we genuinely want and not something that we should be doing. That's also a hidden motivation, is like, I should be doing social media, or I should be, going to the gym every day or whatever. What do you actually want? The way that I like to play with the gift is I like to bring in a teaching from Andrew, my yoga instructor, who I mention often because I have so many of his teachings have stayed with me. He talked about how his favorite question is, what do I want? Because it's such an interesting question, because if you keep asking that question, eventually you get to like, I don't know, I just want it. Like, why do you want a business? Well, because I want this. Okay, well, why do you want freedom, whatever you just said? Well, because I want to be able to travel. Well, why do you want that? And it's like, well, I don't know, it's just a pure desire of my heart. And when we can get to that place and it's genuinely a pure desire and there's no real why as to why you want that, that's when we can be in the gift of our attraction, because we're actually supposed to have desires, and we're supposed to want things. It's one of the great joys of life. I mean, you have the freaking gift of desire, or the shadow of desire in your conscious sun. I know you know this, like the wanting, but the gift is lightness. It's like the lightness of wanting things rather than feeling oppressed. We're supposed to want stuff, but we're not supposed to feel oppressed by wanting it. And so Gene Key 30 is a great gene key to look at that, but it also shows up here in the shadow, or in the gift and the teaching of the sphere of attraction. We have desires, they're authentic, they're true to us. And when we try to do weird ones that have a weird agenda, we're going to find ourselves in a shadowy place. But if we just are like, I don't know, I just want it, that's when we get into the gift. And so the gift of gate 9 is determination. It's like the allegory or metaphor, whatever that always comes up, is how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. It's like, how do you do that? You just take one step at a time. And so that's the power of the infinitesimal, the taming power of the small is what it's called in the I Ching. It's like just a small thing every single day. So a good example of this with social media that I always talk about, it's like one post, like, yeah, that could be a post that, I don't know, made a huge difference for me in my business, but that post made a huge difference because I did 30 other small posts before that, and I see them as bricks, little bricks, and I'm building my house and I'm building my foundation, and eventually I'm going to have a castle. Right now it might be like a big house, but every day I post and I put a little brick there, and that's the taming power of the small. And so that, in the gift frequency of that, is a determined person that is not overwhelmed by the details, that knows the power of the small, that knows the power of the infinitesimal. And so when it comes to you and your desires, and like claiming your desires from a pure place and from an innocent place, it's like the way you're going to attract that and be the most attractive is when you're living in the frequency and the mindset of like, nothing goes to waste. Like, I can do this. Like, I just need to take one small step every day to anything I want, and I'm going to get it. And I'm going to get so many amazing things along the way. I'm going to learn so much. It's going to be so good. I am determined, and nothing can stop me. And that's actually the Siddhi of invincibility. Nothing can stop me. So I'll end with the Siddhi, and then here, if you have any thoughts. The Siddhi of our, actually, let me stop right now, because this is more like the human state before we get to like Siddhic frequencies. Any quick thoughts on that? Does that feel true? Like activating, good? Anything?
Yeah, absolutely. I can totally resonate with I resonate because I see it, not that I live it, the part of the innocence. And my motivation is also innocence.
Yeah.
So I'm what you just said with my conscious son. It's been a process for me to leave the agendas, and with social media and sometimes with relationships, I'm like going, I found myself before more than now, like going for a specific goal, and that made me stuck, like I better not go, I better don't relate. I will not, and now I'm like, okay, I feel like this determination in relationships will be like, okay, you can build a relationship step by step, with
Yeah.
the innocence, like allow myself to be more playful and, let go kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I, as an innocence motivation myself, I totally get it too. It's been one of the most transformative things for me in my business is just to like lean into like just fun and play and like my friend just came and brought me, I left a sweatshirt at her house. It's the I am Kenough sweatshirt from Barbie, because I just like love it. Like I just love to play and like just be like crazy and do my own thing. So totally get that. And I can relate. Let's finish up with the city here of attraction. The city of attraction engenders a profound spiritual and sexual transformation. So this is like, we have this whole situation with this very feminine attractor field that we had, right? The feminine like draws in, attracts, like we receive. And so that's where we receive, magnetism, fortune, and then we also have and like creativity and chemistry, but then we have this like also sexual part of it as well. And so and it's this like spiritual transformation, and invincibility is really that release of the ego shell illusion again. It's like if I look around and I see just the smallest step, I can see the potential of what that small step could become, which is this unstoppable thing. And that's as much as is going to come out about the city. But it's like if I, again, going back to what I was saying before, it's like if I am determined, that makes me unstoppable. I can just do that thing every day. And that mindset and that frequency of like here, this is a thing that I believe fully for myself. That's what I'm saying. This is a gene key that I don't have, but I contemplate often. I talk about this a lot. And like I was talking about this with some friends yesterday, about business and whatever. And I got this question of like, are you just like naturally confident? And one of the things that for me is like a state of confidence and grounds me is this idea of like, if I just do it every day and I just build the skill every single day and I'm going to get better and then I'm going to achieve it, and it's a full surrender into that process. And like, I'm not worried, I'm not worried about it. I'm going to show up every single day. And that means I'm going to get better at what I do every single day. And then that means I'm going to achieve everything I want to achieve. Okay. I'll leave it at there because it's just hard to describe cities. So you're a line 5 here. And so the lines of attraction are going to show us how we kind of express ourselves sexually, which is not just about sex and like whatever. It's just like I like my brother is a priest, and they have very interesting relationships with sexuality, obviously because they're celibate. Like he's a Catholic priest, and his definition of sexuality is so interesting to me. His and I have kind of taken it on. It's like his what is it, definition of sexuality is how you interact with the world. Like what's your relationship with how you interact with the world? And I think that fully works here because it's not, if you work with the gene keys, it's not just like this is just about sex. Like no, it's like this is kind of like a metaphor for more things. This is like how you experience, yes, sexuality when it comes to sex, but just how you interact with the world. And then that's going to show us that part. And then it's going to show us a shadow and a gift of that interaction from a sexual context. And that's going to have an ensuing state of agony if we're in the shadow, or an ensuing state of ecstasy if we're in the gift. So it's going to show us how we feel when we're attracting things and relating with the world. So the line 5 attraction has a sexual shadow of entrapment, leading to this state of agony of being manipulative. And then we can instead find ourselves in the gift of sensuality, which would lead to an ensuing state of ecstasy of masterful. So let me read what the words are so that we don't continue to get twisted around. The 5th line sexuality shadow is the frequency of entrapment. So either manifesting as a repressive nature of becoming sexually trapped through low self-esteem, or a reactive nature of using sex to manipulate others through a projection of power. So it's like you're either feeling entrapment, either feels like you're trapped, or you're like trapping other people. It's like I'm going to use in the trapping part, it's like I'm just so fucking good at sex that like you're never going to leave me, and I'm going to like that, like I'm so afraid that I'm not good enough in another way, that at least I can say I fucking rock in the bedroom, and like you're not going to leave me because of that. But it's like it's a state of fear, right? It's not actually like authentic like self-love. And then the other one is like I'm not even good enough, and like I'm just going to repress my sexuality, and like I'm not even going to be like having sexual experiences, and then think about how that relates with the rest of the world. Like, do you use like, your power or your awesomeness in some other way to keep people in your life or to keep things happening, or do you feel like you have a very low self-esteem and you feel trapped in your life anyway? And that leads to that state of agony of manipulative. Either you feel manipulated or you manipulate others. And so, to make this shift into higher frequencies, the fifth line sexuality needs to wake up and pierce through the veil of illusion, which can happen quite dramatically. So, we have the fifth line like fall from grace, like shocking experiences, as the fifth line has. And so, there might be, I'm a fifth line here too. I'm a 59.5 here. So, it's like all of the sexuality, whatever keynotes. And I can definitely say that I've had some shocking experiences with my sensuality that have then kind of shocked me out of that experience, that I'm not going to share publicly on this podcast. But anyway, so at a gift, we have this powerful sensuality with self acceptance, enjoyment, and appreciation, whilst also having crystal clear boundaries and not manipulating others or being manipulated through power. And that's the inherent gift of the fifth line. And that creates an ensuing state of ecstasy of mastery. My podcast is called Shortcuts to Mastery. Like, I love the feeling of being masterful in what it is that I do, and in particular with my sensuality, like with my, like the way that I feel attractive to the world, like the way that I feel worthy of my desires, and also the way that I feel attractive in the bedroom. It's like I want to feel masterful in that area, and I want to feel sensual, and that part of that is like becoming self-expressed, because I've like have become self-accepting of like really who I am, and appreciate myself, and I can enjoy that. So it's a very, we have this like attraction sphere is kind of more like, how do you manifest what you want? That's a very simplistic way of looking at that. But it's also like, how do you attract the right people and the right things to you, at the right time? And then we have this like very interesting line keynotes of more looking at like the sexual theme and the state theme of like, how do I feel? But if we can put them together, the kind of, if we are going to finish up with this, essentially, let's just focus on the getting what it is that you want, whether it's sexually or materially. The shadow of inertia is going to be, how it's not going to work for you. Essentially, you're going to be attracting the wrong things in, and you might feel trapped, and you might feel like you have to manipulate because you're just stuck and you're overwhelmed, right? Whether it's sexually or with your social media account, doesn't matter which one it is. It's about getting the things that you want. And then at the gift state, we have this like, fuck it, I'm powerful. Like, I'm not a victim of these details. I do one detail at a time and I'm good. This determination. And that leads to feeling like sensual and like masterful and getting what you want, and masterful and get like, when I manifest things, I feel like I'm fucking powerful. It's like this power energy. And that's very much a line 5 attraction keynote. So if you can take those keynotes and then apply them to like the bedroom, to your manifestations, to your attracting people, like collaborations in your life or whatever, that's how you're going to see, that's going to give you a lot of insight into those areas. Okay. So a lot of things. How you feeling? Clear? Good? Does that all make sense?
Yeah, yeah, makes sense.
Cool. Okay. Amazing. Well, let's keep going. We're going to get into this very interesting part of the Venus sequence, which is the 4 parts that mirror the other 2 sequences. So the Venus sequence is unique in this sense, where we have this kind of, these 2 spheres, the purpose and attraction, that kind of stand alone as like the setup. We have, who are you as the sphere of purpose? Can you commit to being yourself? And then we have the sphere of attraction, which is like, great, you're going to act in this certain level. This is who we're going to attract at that certain level. That's the setup for the Venus sequence. And then we get into the sphere of IQ, the sphere of EQ, SQ, and then the sphere of core. And that mirrors the same as the activation sequence and the pearl sequence, in the sense that we have a challenge, a breakthrough, and a core stability in the pathways. So the other interesting part of this sequence is that we're looking at periods of time where we imprinted these certain frequencies. And so we have the core being what was imprinted, this like core wound that was imprinted when we were in the wound, in the womb. And then we have the SQ, which is the imprinting that happened during the first 7 stages of life. So like your first Saturn cycle. Then we have the EQ being the emotional imprinting between ages 8 and 14. And then we end with the IQ, which is the mental imprinting that happened between 15 and 21. So we have these like 3 7-year cycles. We're going to work backwards because we have to work with the latest one rather than like the core of it first, essentially. So we're peeling back the layers. Okay. Does that feel clear? Questions on that?
No,
I know
no.
you.
Yeah, clear. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, let's get into it. So we start with the sphere of IQ, and the sphere of IQ is imprinted by the conscious Venus placement. And it's the intelligence quotient. It really looks at your psychology. And this is the wounded teenage mind that imprinted between ages 15 and 21. So this is like the last stage of the core wounds imprinting, essentially. And this is the role that our mind has in relationship to the openness of our heart. And it's going to be an exploration into the specific unconscious pattern of thinking we each have that serves the purpose of protecting us from hurt and to try to protect us from the sacred wound. So we're looking at like, how does my mind, because the whole part of the Venus sequence is relationships as a spiritual path. So I can open my heart and live with an open heart and not be like protecting myself and acting out of fear. We're wanting to act from a healed place. And the first place we start is the wounding of the mind. So can we now act from a healed place from our mind? Let me just take a sip of water. Okay, and you have gate 17 here, which is kind of fun because it's like an ajna, like mind gate in the sphere of mind, which is fun. So this is gate of opinions. This is Aries energy. This is the energy of opinions. It's here to offer its opinions about what will work and what will not. And opinions are necessary to find the best and most logical solution, but they need to be invited in. And this is a projected channel. And so the shadow of this jinki, the jinki is called the eye. What a cool name. It speaks to the inability to be unbiased at the shadow level and always feeling like you need to defend your opinion. Think Aries, like, fighting. And the gift, however, is the power to see things from different perspectives and to stay skeptical. So let's talk about it. I just need to clear my throat because I'm just talking. Give me 1 second. Okay, let's do this. So we have the shadow here. The shadow is opinion of this gene key, and the shadow of IQ is the unconscious thinking pattern that tries to protect you from emotion and how you believe you're unworthy of love. And so whenever you get triggered mentally, your mind is immediately going to go to opinion. Oh, no, this is wrong, or oh, this is whatever. Let's talk about opinion, actually. So opinion, the shadow of opinion, is being a victim of opinion. So this is one of those interesting gene keys where the shadow is like, or the reason that you're in a shadow is because you're a victim of that. Opinion isn't actually bad. But if you're a victim of opinion, then that's when it shows up in a state of suffering. So, what are the ways that we could be a victim of opinion? Well, we have the repressive nature where you're self critical. You're actually a victim of your own opinion or of other people's opinions of you. If someone's like, Gina, I don't like your shirt, whatever, going back to that example, and you're like, that's like, well, you're a victim of opinion. Someone else's opinion has power over you. Anything that has power over you makes you a victim of that thing. And then we have the other way we can be victims of opinion, or opinion can show up in a shadowy way, is if we are opinionated, meaning we feel like we have to defend our opinion. If you have to do something, you're a victim of that thing also. It's like, I have to stand behind this, and there's only, one way. It's also part of the shadow of opinion, is this belief that there's only one and there's no two opinions that can live simultaneously. And so if there's only one, then that person's opinion wins. That's the self-critical repressive nature. Or my opinion wins, which is the reactive nature of opinionated. And that is when it's a win-lose scenario, we know that we're not in like an elevated model of humanity's consciousness. We're in a shadowy state. And so opinion, if that's the thinking pattern that tries to protect you from emotion and how you believe you're unworthy of love, it's going to show up in either a self-critical way or in this opinionated way. I'm curious if you if you relate to one more than the other, or if they both just kind of show up equally.
Repressive.
They're repressive, yeah.
We're talking about teenage years, so yeah,
Right.
totally self-aware, like, oh, what would they think of me? But very unconscious. Now I'm more aware of it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, totally. And so if someone else, if you're walking around at that age being very self-critical, it's like your mind is very aware of like, what is everyone thinking about me? Like what you were just saying. And it's like, well, I got to be this way and I got to be that way because like my opinion doesn't matter of if I like myself or not. It doesn't fucking matter. Like it only matters like what they think. And there's other ways that this could show up because this is when we look at the pathway that follows, we have this pathway of intelligence. This is challenge, right? This is akin to challenge. We're looking at the nature of IQ and EQ together, so my mind and my emotions together. The best way to look and the shadow of this pathway is defense. It's like being defensive. If you are if most of you is like, oh, I'm going to be self-critical, like you said something mean to me and I'm going to be self-critical, that could be a way. But another way could be like, well, no, and like fighting back and like, well, I'm right and like my opinion or whatever, and this is why you're this and that and that. And it's also logical energy, so it's like, logically here's like why I'm right. And this can be people that can be very intense about defending, kind of lawyer types, defending their opinion. Because if it's painful to have that conversation, or if it's painful to hear that you let down the person you're in a relationship with, and you want to be protected from emotion using your mind, you might use your opinions in order to like skirt around that conversation. So anyway, that's just a quick way that the reactive could also show up. But what's the gift here? We have the gift of farsightedness, and the gift of our IQ is what unlocks our mental maturity and your ability to be mentally optimistic and like respond with grace. Again, here is the word respond rather than react. Shadowy reaction. Reaction could be, I'm self-critical. No, you're right. I'm a piece of shit. I should totally change my haircut or whatever. Or it could be like, no, fuck you. Like, it could be this very like intense reaction. But instead of reacting at a shadowy way, the responding with grace is this gift of farsightedness. And farsightedness is the power to see things from different perspectives. That's why it's called the eye. It's all about seeing. When your eye is like only within you, which is how we normally live, right? Our eyeballs are never outside of us. We believe that there's only one perspective because we're only seeing things from one perspective. We physically cannot remove our eyeball and like see it from a different place. But that's what the gift is asking us to do, is to have empathy, mental empathy, basically, and step into another's mind and be like, you know what? I see how you could see it that way. And that doesn't mean you have to agree with them, obviously, but it's like, oh yeah, like there isn't just one opinion. And I'm not a victim of upholding that one opinion, either by bending to it or having to defend it. Instead, I don't have to react and fight to the death about my opinion. I can instead just respond with grace and see that there's actually more than one way of looking at this certain subject. And that is a very mentally strong person. That's your version of being mentally strong because that's your gift of your mind, of your IQ. I like to just say IQ is just mind. We're looking at the mind. Farsightedness is the strongest, most resilient mind that you can have, essentially, or your strong, resilient mind. And then we have the Siddhi here, omniscience. So this is a silly sentence. This is the key to the quantum field through my awareness. Essentially, we're saying, how is the mind in service of our enlightenment? Like the key to enlightenment through my mental awareness. And this becomes stronger the more you open your heart. And omniscience, if we are now, because in the human realm, like you, Gina, me, Maria, we can sit here and be like, oh yeah, we have different opinions for sure. But if I just, and that's farsightedness, but if I remove the ego and I'm just like a soul floating in in the ether, and I'm connected to all beings, I can see all opinions. Whoops. I can see all opinions. I can see all things. That's omniscience. I know all, but not from like a know-it-all place, just from a I can see. And that's the I can see all of it. And that that surrender to the seeing all is how you can essentially achieve enlightenment through your mind, is how the Siddhi of IQ would be interpreted. Any quick thoughts on that before we talk about the line?
Yeah, when we were talking about the shadow, it really, in those years, it really hurt in terms of the purpose, the style, the expression of style. It was that like, oh, I don't fit in, and being yeah, self-critical in that way. Opinionated, I feel when I'm challenged sometimes, until I made it very until I was aware of it, that I was triggered sometimes by, when I felt challenged by my opinions. And the far-sightedness, I totally relate to it in terms of my empathy, when
Mm.
I'm able to, well, I have an open action as well, so, and head,
Right.
so I totally feel that now in my 30s, but it's been a process. It's been a process.
Yes, no, 100%.
Mm.
I like that you can relate it back to like when this was being imprinted, in your teenage
Yeah,
years.
because I
It's super
really
helpful.
felt it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's super important to go back to that. But yeah, but you have this mental empathy, I've never used that word to describe farsightedness before, but that really is like kind of what it is.
Mm.
But yeah, so you're a line 5 here, and the line keynotes are going to show us about the nature of our mind. And you have the line 5, which is the practical mind. So you're here to go from this shadow of defensive to this gift of practical. So this is a mind that can bring clarity to seemingly impenetrable issues and make the complex accessible, bringing both depth and detail right down to their essence. So the shadow of the fifth line mind is this teenage wounding pattern that can be very manipulative. So another manipulation keynote here. It's just a keynote for the line 5 across the Venus sequence. So this is defensiveness through intellect. So when in pain, you're someone that can easily turn the other one's arguments back on them and use guilt to turn the truth around to suit your own view. And that's such a good, like, that's again like a double energy here of like opinion and like logic and this like practical mind. It's like you're just really good at being like, well, no, look at your opinion and your thing or whatever. Or you might not even do that outwardly, but you probably do it in your own mind. You're like, well, these people are fucking stupid and they have no idea. I'm so much smarter than them and blah, blah, blah. Gina's dying laughing if you guys, since you guys can't see the video. And so the key to transforming this is deep self-awareness and a willingness and a commitment to not clever your way into cynicism and arrogance, because instead you're like just a super fucking powerful problem solver with your mind. You have a fucking insanely smart mind, with this, and very practical, right? Not that the other lines don't have smart minds. I'm just saying your version of it is this practical. I like my one of my coaches used to describe this thing that she loved to do, where she has her conscious sun is the gate of chaos, right? So 3, and she would describe it as I like to solve wicked problems, just like the most complex, like, how do we figure this out? Whole situations. Like she loves the puzzle of that. And that is like the gift of the practical line 5 mind of like, I can solve and sort and sift and organize all of this, what seems to be impenetrable to others. To me, this wicked problem is actually my playground. So that's like the power of your mind. So with the shadowiest way, you're really defensive, you're really opinionated, you're self-critical, and that's how your mind tries to protect you from pain, and that's how it's going to be defensive. But the power of your mind is really this far-sightedness, practical individual with a lot of mental empathy, as we were saying. Cool. Feeling good?
Yeah, great.
Let's keep going. So we have this pathway of intelligence here, which is the relationship challenge. The nature of the relationship between the IQ and the EQ is going to present a challenge. And the challenge is defensiveness, reaction rather than responding. How do we use, in like the shadowy way is, how do we use our minds and our emotion in a defensive way? But the gift is like, how do we use our mind and our emotions in service of the heart? So that's what we're looking at here. If we go to the other side of this pathway, the EQ, the emotional quotient, this is our ideology. This is our emotions in service of the heart. But in the shadowy way, the EQ is the wounded pubescent emotions imprinted in ages 8 to 14. And it represents our emotional quotient, which is a measure of our emotional intelligence and looks at how safe we feel emotionally. So you have gate 11 here, the gate of ideas, another Ajna Center gate. So that's kind of fun. This is the bringing together and sorting of ideas and images in the formation of the bigger picture or story. It's also imprinted by conscious Mars. That's fun. You have like a Aries Venus, Sag Mars, like, lots of fiery energy. And so this is but going back to gate 11, this is the clarity and this is where the clarity and ideas come from after the mental processing occurring in the ajna. So you're processing all this information in your ajna and you're sharing it through your opinions in the logical way through 17, and then you're sharing it in an abstract way through your ideas and like stories from gate 11. So the gene key is called the light of Eden. It's actually one of those that like, it's one of those where it's not quite totally separate and different, but it's a little bit, it's a one of those gates where in the gene keys it's a little bit different. There's some that are just totally different, but this one's like a little bit different. So the shadow of this gene key speaks to the mental obscurity that can happen when our mindset and beliefs are not operating at their highest capacity. But the gift is the true nature of our mind, which is idealistic and is always seeking to shine a light on the truth. That's the light of Eden, keynote here. So the shadow is obscurity. And at the shadow of EQ, that's your lack of emotional intelligence. And it results in a constant undermining of your core stability. So just a quick teaching on that. It's like if we're not emotionally intelligent, then we have and we get triggered, we're going to have this like big emotional reaction or big emotional shutdown, or we're going to see how it's going to show up for you. But it's like this lack of emotional intelligence is going to result in this constant undermining of our core stability. We don't feel stable. We don't feel like we can be in relationship. We run away, we shut down, we lash out, whatever. It's just something where we're not really grounded in our core. And for you, the line is going to tell us about that. But we also have the flavor of the shadow keynote. The flavor and the lens that this is going to be filtered through is through the shadow of obscurity. So obscurity is being a victim of beliefs. I'll just start with teaching a little bit about obscurity, and the thing that I always look at this, if this is a keynote or if this is a gene key that wants to shine a light on the truth, and that's what it really cares about, the shadow version of that is like, I feel obscured from the truth. And my mind is actually what is obscuring me from being able to see. And it's not necessarily that it was your fault. This shadow speaks a lot to like cults and like being kind of, brainwashed essentially and promised with propaganda a truth that wasn't really a real truth. And so whether it's, through, especially if you have like an open ajna, you kind of take in beliefs more so than someone with a undefined ajna. But this shadow of obscurity is like the pain of wanting to know truth, but still being obscured from it because our mind is not necessarily like supporting us and seeing the truth, if that makes sense. I know it's kind of like a obscure, speaking of obscurity, it's kind of like an obscure one. And so we have this repressive nature of fantasizing. It's just, well, I'm obscured from the truth, but I'm like in this fantasy world that like, no, this really is it, and it's one that doesn't necessarily try to tell other people about their own beliefs. You just kind of live in your own mind and you're like, well, this is my fantasy and like, this is how it works and blah, blah, blah. And then we have this reactive nature of deluded, just complete delusion, not able to see the truth, but like telling other people also like, no, follow me, like get into this like cult or belief system or follow like whatever this school of thought or what's another way to describe that? You get what I'm saying. And so, but it's all from this, it all comes from this like victim of beliefs energy, this mindset and beliefs not operating at their highest capacity. And so when it comes to like, how does this relate to your emotional intelligence and how does this relate to being in the shadow? I think the way that this would, maybe like a simple example of this is like, if something happens where you feel triggered emotionally, someone says something hurtful, again, let's go back to ages 8 to 14. It's like, we're in middle school, we're in like primary school, we're um, someone is saying, oh, Susie thinks that you're like really not good at this sport and you kind of like, I don't know, smell bad or something like that. Like there might be this, I could imagine this shadow of obscurity and this victim of beliefs being like, oh my God, I thought we were friends. Like I thought I like was wearing the right outfit. Like I thought everyone was like, wait, I thought I was part of this. Like I thought that I was, like it's this, you all of a sudden realize like, I've been obscured from the truth. Like I thought we were friends. I thought my deodorant was working. I don't know what, I thought I smelled fine. I thought that this was the cool outfit to wear. You know what I mean? It's like can be this pain of like the rug has been pulled out from under you. You didn't know the truth. You were obscured from that light, that everyone else seemed to know. You were not in on the secret that everyone else knew. Okay. Does that like bring up some real tangible, stuff
Yeah,
for you?
yeah. I
Okay.
had a few of those experiences during that ages, with friendships or groups. Yeah. Not in the same example, but yeah, kind of things that unveil, and
Mm-hmm.
okay, I thought we were fine, but we're not.
Yeah.
And in terms of the emotional intelligence, I can feel how I used to go to my mind when feeling overwhelmed emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
And that had a lot of impact in my all my life until recently, until I discovered all these tools, for self-awareness and knowledge. So
Yeah.
yeah, really resonate. Going to my mind, to my brain, the rational
Right.
part, instead of connecting to my emotions. It's been a process, life, since my 20s, like a purge kind of thing.
Yeah. 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 And it's like, I'm curious if it would show up more of like, well, I'm just going to go to this fantasy. No, everything's okay. Like, whatever. Or like this, like, diluted, like, again, kind of still fantasy, but like, no, no, we're fine. Like, no, what are you talking about? Like, we're fine. Like, I don't know what you're saying. Like, we're like mentally, you kind of using your mind yeah, to escape from the pain. So, yeah, thanks for sharing. This is one of those, for people listening, it's one of those processes of when you're reading really um, convoluted information like this, and you have to kind of get through all of the teaching, and then eventually you can synthesize it to like a real life example of like the rug was pulled out from under you, or like you saying like I go to my mind. Like we just have to get through all the complexity, and then we can get down to the simplicity of like how this stuff really can show up for us. But yeah, cool. Thanks for going on that journey with me. That was a fun interpretation of that. Then we have this gift here, which is idealism. And so the gift of the EQ is bringing the best of your childhood to life again. That's one keynote. And then we have embodies emotional intelligence through awareness. So just on the simpler side, it's like when we're in the gift of our EQ, that's when we are the most emotionally intelligent, the most emotionally resilient, the most emotionally aware, rather than having, one event pull out the rug from under us and we're crumbled and weak and not able to stand up. This speaks to the gift, instead speaks to emotional resilience. So we want to know, essentially, when we look at our life, just the question is, do you feel emotionally resilient or not? That's going to tell you whether you're in the gift or not of your EQ. But then we have this other keynote of like bringing the best of my childhood to life again. And the way that I have really, the Gene Keys doesn't speak too much more on this, or at least not last time I checked, but the way that I have really like felt into this is like when we were that age, we felt so much, we were so emotionally sensitive and big emotions, like there was just a lot. And if we live life now, a lot of us are living life like with kind of we've kind of suppressed our ability to feel. I'm going to bring up this thing I read recently, this idea that like a regulated nervous system is actually going to make you more sensitive, because how if we are dysregulated in our nervous system and unable to be safe, we're like repressing the ability, we're shutting ourselves down so that we don't feel. And when we were that age, we were able to feel, we really let all life in. And that caused us maybe to repress later, maybe it was too much, but it's just that kind of, there was so much when we were feeling the good stuff, it was really good, the highs were really high. And so that's kind of this what I have really gotten from like bringing the best of my childhood to life again, is like really able to open my heart as much as I can and really feel and be with it and cry at Simba and like, whatever, like not, instead of shutting it down. And so idealism is the gift here. And if we have the shadow of obscurity, this is the person that cares about the truth, that has, and not just cares about the truth, but like beauty, and this is abstract energy. It's like the like light is like, and the truth is not, it's not, we're not thinking logical truth. It's like beauty, truth, like love, togetherness, all the city energy. And that's idealism. That's really who you are, as someone that's very idealistic and thinks really idealistically about the world, and does think like we are good, we are friends. The shadowy way is going to show up in a certain way, but really like that really is who you are when you're not a victim of those beliefs and you're not just controlled by them. And so that your ability to be idealistic and really see the best in things and look for the light and look for the truth is bringing the best of your childhood to life again, and is emotional intelligence through awareness. And it is and it's your mind in service of the heart a little bit, because it's like your ajna, it's an ajna gate, right? But it's this feeling of idealism of like who I am as an optimistic person. And like, so a way that this could show up then is if you have like a let's think of like where this lies in the Venus sequence. It lies in this challenge pathway of intelligence where like the shadow is about being defensive. If you have a trigger point in a conversation or something like that, rather than going to your mind and obscuring and whatever, instead you can use your idealism to be like, no, I know this person loves me, and I know that this is going to be actually like a good conversation if I just like take a second. And like you can use that idealisticness essentially to stay grounded and to stay aware and regulated emotionally. Does that make sense and feel practical?
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally resonate with what you said about the awareness through feeling and not repressing. Because
Mm-hmm.
that's what I meant when I mean, the work I've been doing is more like, yeah, connect with the emotions, with the body. And instead of going straight to my mind to try to
Yeah.
process from that space.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, cool. Then we have finally the Siddhi here, the Siddhi of light. This is where my emotions are at their highest frequency. And this is the key to emotional transcendence. So the emotions in service of enlightenment. And I think the EQ is kind of like um fickle in the sense, because it's like, what is emotions? Like, how do we get into our emotions? Is it how I physically feel somatically? Is it how I think about how I feel? Like, how do you pin down emotions? And I have like a certain, like for me, emotions feel like it's in my core, like in my center. And so that's how I've experienced it. But I think it's a question for everyone. And as you contemplate the sphere of your emotional quotient, it's like your ideology, right? It's like, where do emotions lie in your body? Like, where do you feel them, and how do you distinguish them from just a physical feeling or like a mental thought? That's it's kind of this weird in between of the two. And so um if we so all that to say, got to know what that is for you if we're going to use emotions as a pathway to enlightenment. And for you, light is like your highest emotional intelligence. And the surrender this is a surrender frequency, right? We're getting, it's not just you now being your idealistic self and no longer being obscured and being a victim of these beliefs. It's like, okay, Gina's gone, like she's connected to all things, like we're back in the one. It's actually reconnecting again to that kind of divine truth, to the light of Eden, like the thing that has always been present, right? Again, if this is someone that cares about that, of course, when they're obscure, they're going to feel bummed out, right? Of course, when it's a victim of beliefs, they're going to be in that shadowy state because they actually care about what actually is truth. And this is one of those that is like, okay, you could say a lot of things about it, but light is really important in the gene keys, because the 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 teaching is like that our DNA are like wormholes of light essentially, and we're just looking at how light this is so hard to talk about with the acidic frequencies, but the teaching is essentially like when your genes are expressing at the highest level, they're actually expressing light. And so I'm going to stop here because we're just going to get to like just crazy mumbo jumbo stuff. But essentially, the acidic frequency of your EQ is your emotions at their highest, most resilient state. And it's a state of being connected to all things. And for you, that is the light, like that is the truth, like that is like what you like know to be true, essentially. Okay, I think that's the most practical way I could interpret an enlightenment frequency. Let's get into a more practical keynote, which is the line. And the line of EQ is going to show us about some of our emotional challenges and some of our emotional gifts, or our main emotional challenge and our main emotional gift. So you go from, as a line 4 here, you go from meanness to kindness. And so in the shadow frequency, we have this meanness. The fourth line puts a wall around their heart in defense when triggered, because the fear of the line 4 is rejection always. And so they reject others before you can be rejected. And so that's a kind of a mean, cruel thing. Um, And so this is emotional freezing, not letting emotion show on the surface, which finally leads to constriction around the heart, becoming meanness. And so emotionally, like when you're hurt, when the rug's been pulled out from under you and you thought, it was a certain way and it wasn't in that way, and you were rejected, and that's your biggest fear, it might turn into, it doesn't need to be a super insane like lashing out. That's more of like a line 2 thing. But for the line 4, it's like shut down and like coldness around the heart, which makes you kind of a mean person. And I think you were saying earlier something about being in the mind and cold, or something about, I don't know. I think you said something like that earlier. I don't remember when, maybe in the purpose or something like that. But it's this kind of extra layer and this new keynote that we're discovering here of like coldness and like, I don't give a fuck about you. Like, fuck you, fuck off. Cause like it's this fear of like, I don't want to be rejected. It's actually you really care. Yeah. That How's that coming up for you?
Yeah, it's again like it's the same idea you were saying. I think I said it in, yeah, I don't remember in the purpose. I think, yeah.
Yeah.
I've had this tendency on freezing my own self,
Yeah.
and freezing the other. And
Yeah.
my partner, he's a witness. He has experienced
Yeah.
all my, my progress around that, because yeah, when I used to feel overwhelmed, emotionally overwhelmed, I would shut myself in my heart, in my mind, and not speak. And then it's been a process to allow myself to open up, even with
Yeah.
my family or anyone, actually. In friendship is easier because I don't go, maybe that's a thing, in that level of depth, but in a daily life, with my partner, he's been affected by this meanness. So,
Yeah. He's a
yeah.
victim of it. Yeah. No, that
Yes.
makes sense. Yeah. Well, but you actually can be this like, you can actually have this beautiful gift of kindness. It's actually the gift side of it. And so it's good to know, the shadow stuff too, but it's even more important to know what the gifts are that you bring to the table. I guess that was the word that wanted to come out, but it's not even about bringing anything to the table. It's just like this gift that you are. And so, to transform this to this gift of kindness, instead of freezing emotionally, the fourth line needs to reconnect with their natural open hearted nature. Rather than projecting their fear of rejection and low self esteem onto others, high self esteem manifests itself as kindness that wants to be shared with others so that everyone may feel good. Part of this meanness comes from low self esteem, essentially. It's like, I'm going to be rejected, like, I'm not good enough. And so I'm just going to shut down because I don't want to feel that pain of rejection. When instead of projecting that onto others and being like, you're going to reject me because I'm terrible, it's like, well, no, what if that wasn't true? What if I actually was good enough as I am, and my feelings are valid, right? Because we're navigating the realm of EQ. It's like, I'm good enough as I am, my feelings are valid. Like, it's important for me to connect to my feelings, and like part of my feelings is that I'm like, I just love everyone and like, I'm an open-hearted person, and like when people come into my space, like I can sit and hold space for them and have a great conversation. And I don't need to shy away from their emotions or my emotions. Like that's something that you're actually really, really good at. And it's also this beautiful connection to like this idealism, like this like beautiful vision of like what we really should be, which is connected to all and kind to all. I'll just say this, like yesterday, my friends and I were taking a walk around our neighborhood and it was kind of late. I don't know why we took such a late walk. It was like 11 or like 10:30, and there was a man that seemed to be kind of maybe stumbling around, and like in my idealistic world, like I'd love to be like, hey man, are you okay? But like it's late at night, it's like not like the best part of town, and I'm afraid. And like, my friend Tom was like, what is that guy doing? And I was like, keep walking, like what are you doing, don't stop. And so anyway, but it's like I have in that moment I was like, but ideally, like that's not what should be happening. So anyway, you have that beautiful idealism, and this kindness, and that is the most resilient and like most emotionally connected you could be, and the way that your emotions will be in most service of opening your heart and being true and authentic in your relationships.
Yeah, definitely resonate. And I feel like
Oh.
in the work that I do right now, that kindness and that idealism helps a lot,
Yeah.
and that also that mental empathy we were talking before.
Mm-hmm.
So it
Yeah.
feels, it all connects.
It all connects as it does. Amazing. Well, we're not going to run too much over, but we still have two more spheres to talk about. We have the sphere of SQ, which is kind of a shorter contemplation. It's quite mystical. And then we'll spend some time on your core, which you were asking about earlier. Do you have time, or are you needing to
Yeah,
run?
I'm
You got time.
fine.
Cool. Let's keep going. So we have the pathway of intelligence. This is the challenge of a relationship to navigate, these two spheres, and the mind and the emotions and the ways in which we normally shut down from people. And this is in the conscious realm. As you can see here, it's our conscious Venus, it's our conscious Mars. Like we were going to navigate this challenge in the conscious realm. And once we can navigate that, we go through this pathway of love, which is a breakthrough in our capacity to love, a breakthrough in our capacity to have and live with an open heart. And that leads us to the SQ, which, as you can see here, is the center of the chart. It's actually the heart of the chart. It's really the thing that is holding this kind of all together. And it's imprinted by the unconscious Venus placement. And it's really, yeah, this contemplation on the purest part of you, which is the spiritual quotient, your mythology. This is the imprinting that happened between ages 0 through 7. And specifically, we're looking at this mother wound idea, this deep search for unconditional love. The mother wound is really the separation wound. We were one with our mother, and then we were cut from her. We were all one atom, and then we were the Big Bang, and now we're all separate. And this is the Gene Key's way of talking about the illusion of separateness. If you've been in the spiritual world for longer than half a millisecond, you'll hear that the greatest illusion is the one that we are separate. And that's this mother wound idea. This, because specifically when we're ages 0 through 7, when we are fresh humans and babies in the world, we are learning that we are actually separate physical entities from our mom. Like, yes, like we are all one, but like I'm not in your body and you're not in my body. Like we have a physical separation in the 3D. And so we're like, what the fuck? I thought we were one. So we're learning to discover that separation and wholeness and balance the two. And so because this is an imprinting of such a young mind, or really, it's not an imprinting on our mind, it's an imprinting on our spirit. It's quite a simple way of looking at it, because it's like this pure way of looking at it. Essentially, in the sense that there's not like shadow, gift, and city. We're looking just at sadness and joy. So the shadow of the key can just be, you can just think of it as sadness. The joy, or the gift, you could just think of it as joy. And this is how you're going to transform this shadow and embody your gift. But it's really just the kind of the most mythological version of you. The most, when you think of like your mythology and your spirituality, and just the most magical kind of way that you relate to the world, like this is the key that is going to be speaking to that, or the sphere. And then the line has something else to say about that. So let's just talk really briefly about gate 26. You have the gate of the egoist here. This is the gate of the deal maker or the salesman, and it's lower frequency. It's prideful and manipulative to get what it wants. But in the higher frequency, it knows that the best outcome is the one that serves everyone, and therefore doesn't require any manipulation. The gene key is called Sacred Tricksters. I love this one. And the shadow of this gene key is the use of the ego in a self-serving, taking, or manipulative manner due to lack mentality. That's the shadow of pride. And then we have the gift instead of this gene key is actually the love and the use of ego for a higher purpose. That's artfulness. So we have the shadow of pride being a victim of egotism or a lack of grit. So at the victim of lack of grit, essentially, if we're living in a zero sum game and there's not enough to go around, I have to manipulate to get what I want. And that's like that repressive nature, because I don't have the grit, I don't have the power, so I got to be sneaky. And I'm going to sell you this thing here, but I'm really going to be taking this thing there. It's like, not it's not a good use of that energy. And then we have victim of egotism. We have this boastful person that's like, oh, look at me, and like you should it's like it's ego, not in a good way, in a self-serving manner, and again, prideful and manipulative to get what it wants. And so the shadow overall keynote being pride. And so if we're looking at like, it's hard to contemplate SQs, just because it's this kind of mythological way of looking at it. But if we're thinking of the shadow being kind of the sadness that you were experiencing during this time, if the sadness is mainly about separation and like I don't know who I am and I'm just kind of like living in this world, then there might have been some keynotes of like, do I have to manipulate and lie to get love and to like be with people? Or like, oh my gosh, you're like dominating me. Like, what's happening here? Like, aren't we just equal? Aren't we just all together? Like, those could be maybe some of the keynotes that could have showed up during that time. And even now, when you think about your spirituality, those are some of the keynotes of sadness that could still show up. It's like, do I have to lie? Like, what? Why can't we just all? What's happening here? Like, why can't we just all be together? And why do I have to manipulate or be boastful in order to get what I want? Why can't we just all get what we want? Those are some of the ways to contemplate that. I really see the SQ as like my spirituality, literally, just at the most kind of like all the weird things that I've picked from all the different places, from human design, gene keys, astrology, angels, channeling, reincarnation. Just that's my SQ. It's going to tell me about that. And then we have this gift of artfulness. Artfulness is like the person that knows that if I put on like this part of me, if I turn up the ego is about identity, right? So you have your own identity. You're a very unique person in your own way. Artfulness is like, I'm going to turn up that part. It's like it's like putting on a costume and playing a character on a stage. It's not manipulative if that's literally like your job to play an actor on a stage, right? If you're acting in a way to if you're pretending in a manipulative way to get something that you want that you shouldn't be getting, that's pride. But if you're like, no, man, like I want, what's an example of this? Um, okay, yeah, social media, right? It's like right now, even like doing this reading, this is definitely like this is an authentic part of me. When I talk and I teach, I turn up the volume on certain parts of my personality. It's like I focus more on my teaching voice. You can see I use my hands a lot. I'm like there's certain ways that I'm heightening that versus I wouldn't be sitting this upright and trying to speak this clearly if I was just like, having a drink with my friends. Like that wouldn't be the part of my personality that I'd be like using. But because I want you to get the best reading and I want the listeners to get the best listening experience, I'm using those certain parts of me in an artful way or trying to, I'm not trying to like pat myself on the back, although fuck it, I'm going to pat myself on the back. Like I'm going to use my, those parts of me in an artful way, if that makes sense. I'm going to use those parts of my identity that are authentic to me, but I'm just going to amplify them in order to have this good experience, which is what I want. I want you to have a good experience. I want the listeners to have a good experience, and I want to have a good experience giving this reading. And so that's a joyful thing for you, and again, I don't know how to interpret this with your spirituality and the way that you view the world spiritually, but you might have some connections there. I'm going to stop right here. Does that make sense? Do those bring up some real things for you?
Yeah, I'm still digesting, but in terms of the ages 0 to 7, I wasn't like manipulative specifically, but I did cry a lot. And I
Mm,
think that was to call the attention,
mm-hmm.
because we are many siblings. We are 5, and I'm the eldest. So yeah, it was see me, please. I'm here,
Yeah.
like,
Yes.
and if I don't do anything, I'm gonna lose it, like
Yeah.
there will not be enough for me. So I think the manipulative side comes from there. And
Yeah.
the artfulness, yeah. I feel it like being myself, right? Like what you were saying, the things you do when you're in like in flow, I guess,
Yeah.
like living your life at the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the love and use of ego for a higher purpose. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'll say this, like you're saying, like I'm still digesting. This is a keynote that like I think is the hardest one to unlock because it's like the earliest memory. It's hard to like connect to that. And it's like our spiritual quotient, it's our mythology. Like, what does that mean? So for me, it's taken a while. I'll just give you my interpretation of mine, and maybe that'll spark some insight. And maybe for others, I have 6 here. And so the shadow is conflict and the gift is diplomacy. And the way that it showed up for me in terms of sadness and joy, my sadness in terms of conflict, and this because it's not just like any conflict, it's like conflict from this like diplomatic place, like this equality, like we want everyone to be like equal. I am one of 4 siblings, but I have 3 brothers. I don't have a sister. It's 3v1, right? And so I always felt like I was like, separate right? Separate from everyone, separate from my brothers. Like I wasn't a part of that group. And I would always be trying to manage, like making sure everyone's having a good time. That was like a big thing for me, ages 0 through 7 was like, is everyone okay? Like, because I'm trying to be this diplomatic person and make sure everyone's okay. And when things weren't okay and there were conflicts, whether I caused them or I couldn't control them, like that was a great sadness to me. And I know like the reason that I know this is such a big one for me is because I think back to the first ever personal development course that I took when I was 20, so almost 10 years ago, and they ask you to come up with a time where like the earliest memory of like sadness, and it was when I my one of my brothers was like doing something to my young, like the little one. And I told my mom because I was worried for my little brother, but my mom got way more mad at my older brother than I wanted her to. And I felt really bad. And I caused this conflict that I didn't want to, but I was trying to be diplomatic. And it's like, if I knew that 10 years ago, that was like my greatest sadness, like during that time, like here's the gene keys just reflecting it back to me. But I'm telling you now, I have not, it took me a couple years to make that connection with the SQ. And whenever I get to this part of reading the Venus sequence, folks are like, what? So it's just one that just takes a while. So just, yeah, like I think the crying thing is interesting. You might then remember some other things that come up too. And then just as you contemplate, it just takes time to let all these things like, land in. But yeah, I'll end just with a teaching on the Siddhi. There's no, the only keynote that I've been able to really find on the Siddhi of SQ is like, this is the highest, what is it? This is the return to the most like authentic version of your heart. Or no, this is the highest expression of your heart. That's what it is. Highest expression of your heart is invisibility. And invisibility is the sacred trickster. And the best way to describe it is this one sentence in that book, which says, the person who is operating at this frequency is doing good things for the world, but they're not telling anyone. It's just a joke between them and God. They're like, just only the gods know that I'm going around and I'm like paying for this person's like dinner or like paying for this person's coffee or like doing this or doing that. It's like this, it's not about you receiving the accolade anymore, because that's still ego, that's still artfulness, and not in a bad way, right? It's like reusing, but it's still you as Gina, as a separate human entity. And visibility is like, no, it's just like consciousness flowing through me, and I'm just doing this like fun thing, and I'm like a sprite, and only God knows, it's like this like sacred joke. So that's like the highest expression of your heart, essentially, is like you're just at your core, you just want to do things, good things for the world, and like you don't care if you like get the accolades for it, really, like at the highest expression of your heart. Okay, let's talk about the line. We're almost there. Two more keys. The line is going to tell us about what we needed in order to develop at that age, what we really needed. Yeah, what the developing child needed. And you are this level of patience and time and space. And so you, as a person, you have this deep need to feel understood, or rather, to not feel misunderstood. So, in the context of what the developing child needs, this sense of feeling seen and accepted and loved as they are is found through the patience and time and space to develop exactly as they need. So, like, if you were like pushed around or hurried, or like, you need to do this, you need to get this faster, like, that was not like conducive to your development. You needed like all the time and space to like, I want to get ready in my own time and discover my own, like what I want to wear. I want to like eat in my own time and discover what I want to eat and like what feels, it's like you just needed to have the time to like figure your life out, at a childhood level. And so at the fear frequency, the line 6 SQ may have been rushed and pushed, leading them to feeling misunderstood and alienated. And this in turn stunts the transformations necessary for the line 6 to develop their vision and their dream of a better future. Because that's what the line 6 always wants. And you have a couple line 6s, in your chart, as we've seen. But out of love frequency, the line 6 gives itself all the time and patience it needs to allow their heart to truly open. This in turn gives others the permission they need to take their time as well, leading to a beautiful sense of surrender. And so you now as an adult, like what you get to give yourself is like all of the time and space to like do what it is that you need to do. And like whenever you find that you're like rushing yourself, or someone else is rushing you to like get something or figure something out, or what do you think, or what do you feel, or whatever, it's like, bro, I don't know, like give me a sec, like I need to figure this out and connect and tune in with myself, right? This is your spiritual quotient. So like We're thinking like meditation, we're thinking journaling, we're thinking going on a long walk, we're thinking a long conversation where you can explore every facet of whatever that thing is that you're trying to develop your spiritual perspective on, essentially. And that's going to, and that will give you the ability to really allow your heart to actually open, and then to develop that vision that you have, that dream for the better future.
Yeah.
Okay, any thoughts on this before we end with the core?
I feel that line 6 goes really great in hand with my conscious line 3, because I'm a 3-6.
Yeah.
So, like I feel like growing up, I had that space. I wasn't rushed. Although my mom sometimes always tells me like, "Oh my God, none of you, did, like the normal, process for kids,
Yeah.
that and stuff." My parents were patient, I feel,
Mm.
and I've had that space to experiment. I've had the inner patience, and whenever I'm out of it, that patience, I want to rush things, I am super out of alignment. That's suffering big time. Like
Yeah.
I feel it. And sometimes, like what we were talking about the modeling before of the trust, I don't remember in which sphere,
Yes,
but
in the
I feel
purpose.
like
Yeah.
I also, in my relationships or with my partner mostly, I share from that patience, like things take time. Let's go through this, that confidence that things will come at the
Yeah.
right time. Sometimes I connect with that, but sometimes when
Mm.
I don't, I resent it. I totally feel it in my body.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna contemplate that,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. I love that. And yeah, I really feel like just at least for me, this key has made a lot more sense the more that I look at this, and really connect to the title, which is spiritual quotient. It's like, that's my mythology. Like, that's like my Maria's religion, like just the way that my spirituality, like when I contemplate the rest of the keys and the lines through that perspective, it makes this a lot more, it makes it understandable for me more. So maybe that can help you as well.
Yeah,
All
thank you.
right. Yeah, you're welcome. To finish up here, we have this pathway of realization, which is akin to the pathway of core stability. And so it's a doubling down of core stability, because now we're getting to the core wound and we're actually going to take a look at it. And it's this idea of like, you know, if you have looked at your core wound and what is like the most challenging aspect of your life, and like no one else can like bother you with it, you know what I mean? It's like, well, yeah, I mean, I know, I already looked at this, like what do you mean? It's you, if you're willing to like peer into that depth, then like you, what's the way I would end this statement? It's like, then you're someone that's kind of unfuckwithable, right? It's like, well, I looked at this like with my own eyes, like I'm unafraid, essentially. So that's why we have this like realization being akin to core stability. And that ends with looking at our core, which is the sacred wound. This is the wound, the core wound that each of us gets to look at continuously and heal and integrate. And as you were saying earlier, you have gate 50 here, which is a gate of values. So this is in the splenic center. This is the energy of values and rules, controlling or dictating rules of the tribe. And these rules are all about caring and making sure that the tribe is cohesive. And so they're often related to like food and provisions, right? This is in tribal defense circuitry. And the shadow of this gene key is called cosmic order. The shadow of this gene key speaks to the inevitable creation of corruption within hierarchies. So whenever there is a hierarchy, there's just going to be corruption, whether folks either become victims of them or they take advantage of them. But the gift of the new social model of balance, equilibrium, harmony, that's like where we're heading towards. So there's a lot of ways we could play with this. So let's take a look. We have the shadow here, which is corruption, as the final piece of your emotional pain that holds you back from your fullest potential. And that's being a victim of environmental disharmony. It's like that hierarchy of your environment, like, you like any environment or any space where there is some sort of hierarchy, there's going to be this energy of like, there's like, essentially it's not right, so it's already corrupt. It's like wherever there's a hierarchy, it's already corrupt. And so the repressive nature of this is overloaded. So like I am a victim of this corruption. Like I'm the one being taken advantage of. Like this disharmony is like oppressive to me. Like and again, I'm curious in the way that this might show up for you because it's like corruption I feel like can be so political, but it's like, we're from South America where corruption can be very rampant. Like maybe the political thing was actually like a thing that was hurtful to you at that time. And like for me, it's not that it's necessarily was like crazy hurtful for me, but it was the reason that we left the country, and that I did not grow up there. So I was a victim of that overloading, you could say. But it could also just be like, the hierarchy of school kids. It could be the hierarchy of the family, like the parent, you're saying your parents are really patient. It might not have been that, it might be something else. But then we also have this repressive nature of irresponsible, or the reactive nature of irresponsible, which is the side where you take advantage of the environmental disharmony, you take advantage of the hierarchy and the corruption. But essentially there's like, I would say that like the two things that at least that I often hear from clients that is the most grounding is number one, they always kind of feel like victims of environmental disharmony. It's like, yeah, you're like thumbs up. It's like why is my environment so fucking stressful? It's like it needs to be perfect. Everything needs to be organized. Everything needs to be this to be that. Yeah, Gina's like dying laughing. And then the corruption aspect of it really mostly shows up as this like feeling of a lack of power and like things aren't equal and like between a man and a woman not equal. That's the thing I struggle with a lot. It's like, where's the equality? Like how can we figure this out? Or like, this person has a lot of money and I don't. Like there's just something about that feeling of like lack of equality, whether you're the one being oppressed or you're the one oppressing, that like feels really painful to us. So yeah, tell me a little bit about how this shows up for you.
That's the one, environmental disharmony. And I yesterday I had a reading, and this person had the same core, and it was the first thing he told me. Like, I definitely get upset when I see unbalanced and disharmonious groups. When
Yeah.
someone's taking lead in our bad or wrong way, and
Yeah.
myself. Coming from South America, but experience different system, different environment in Australia, and from my travels, coming back, I totally feel it. I'm like, that really, really overloads me. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, like you said, how I feel so small. How could I help and make things better? But
Yeah.
I feel it like from the first day that I came back, like
Yeah.
very, very permeable, and it influences me a lot, a
Yeah.
lot. Like not only social, but yeah, of course, groups and stuff, but in terms of a tribal organization as well, like all the interactions, dynamics of power.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I totally feel it.
Yeah, there you go. There's lots, exactly, the dynamics of power, whether it's a country aspect or just like in
Yeah.
your relationships. And like, yeah, it's like this idea of like, um, with the environmental disharmony too, and the lack of balance. It's like just things aren't right. It's like you want things to just be right, whether it's with your environment, whether it's with the people, power dynamics. And this is a Libra to Scorpio cusp gate. I think the 50.3 is in the Libra side. So it really does show up as that like balance of the scales, like I want things to just be equal, and I want there to be fairness and justice, and when you see things that are not fair and just, it's like there's something inherently wrong, deeply wrong. That's the corruption aspect of it. If you get into the gene keys, I'm sure you read the chapter, but it's like, oh, the corruption of like RNA into copied into DNA.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
talks about that too. And it's like, all right, dude. But like it really does help this. I think what that speaks to is this idea that like it's like this wrongness like within us. Like there's something wrong inherently. And so that's the pain. That's the painful aspect. But if you care about that, it's because if that is painful to you, it's because you care about things like harmony. You care about things like equilibrium. And so that the gift here is equilibrium, which is your higher life purpose. This is your greatest creative impulse born out of the transformation of your greatest and deepest pain. And this is your primary gift to the world, to be myself, to express my genius, and to live and create from my core. Like your like equilibrium for you is number one, your double down core stability, like, which is interesting because like stability, equilibrium, that's kind of fun. But it's like you at your core, when you can instead of feeling like there's something inherently wrong and like there's something wrong with me and that everything's disharmonious, but instead being like, I am a force of equilibrium. Like when people are around me, they feel regulated, like they feel peace. They feel like I speak to people as if they're equals. This goes kind of to what you asked me earlier about, parenting and human design for kids. I think at least for me, this could be a personal bias because I always felt what was really hard for me is I never felt like I was equal to my parents. I always felt like I was beneath them. And I don't need to be equal in terms of like making a buying decision for the house when I'm 7. And that's not what I'm talking about. But it's like I felt like I was always talked down to and like, no, because I'm your parent and you don't know enough or whatever. And I feel like this is just my own idea coming through, but like and then I'll interpret more for you just from an unbiased perspective. But something like human design for kids kind of levels the playing field a little bit because it's like, well, now I see your design and my design, and like we both have human designs, and like we're both like just humans, like with this energy, and like I can read it for you and I can understand myself. And now it's no longer like I'm the parent. It's like, no, these are just how our auras like work together. Something about that is just speaking to me about like speaking to kids as equals, seeing them as equals. Again, you don't need to consult your child on like the family vacation budget, but like just in a way that where it's not like I'm corrupt, I'm irresponsible and you're overloaded or something like that. So that's an example just from my own personal expression. But in general, like you are this gift of equilibrium in the sense that like you can see the disharmony, you can regulate it, you when people are around you, they feel like either their balance or their relationships can start to balance out. They feel balanced with you. They feel like you're an equal, or you see them as equals. And it's not so much of this intense wrongness and like power hungry dynamic stuff. So anyway, lots of words here. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like in terms of the values, values,
Mm,
I feel that in terms of the human design for kids, or parenting, I feel that bringing that equilibrium in valuing, having the perspective how I feel it, that I can do it that way, having the perspective on what could be, like balanced out in terms for a better relationship between them and the family system,
mm-hmm.
um, and what's corrupted? Well, as parents, we always corrupt.
Yeah.
Like, but as a mom, I feel I can have the perspective to read those places of corruption and bring more harmony in the process for kids. Because, like you were saying, yeah, we both have human designs. We are both humans, like, and we both can be better, like
Yeah.
mother or dad and the son or the, like the kids. But yeah, and the thing of the equilibrium, I've been told a few times that's what I bring to the table many times in
Mm,
my family. Like I'm like the rooting agent.
yeah. The rock.
So sometimes I don't realize, but yeah.
Yeah, well, it's unconscious, right?
Grounding.
It's
Yeah,
yeah, it's your
grounding.
unconscious Mars. You just bring that to people. And
Yeah.
one of my things that I like to one of the teachings that I resonate with a lot with the core, it's like it's your motivator for everything that you do. And so of course it's going to like show up in an unconscious way because motivations are typically unconscious. And again, this is imprinted by the unconscious Mars placement. So of course it's going to show up unconsciously for you. And you just bring it, you don't know it, you don't realize it, but you are this like rooting rock grounding force for people. And just this idea of like equilibrium or the frequency of it is your like groundedness. And actually, if we get to the city, harmony, this is the deep settling of your essence, maturity, and the light of your consciousness. This is the essence of you, which is both a fractal aspect of, but also in perfect resonance with the whole. So at the place of equilibrium, it's still like the shadow is like the hierarchy victim thing, which is one human over the other. At the gift frequency, it's one human equal to the other. At the city of harmony, it's like all consciousness operating in perfect order. It's not about two individuals, equal to one another. Yeah.
Yeah,
What do
that's
you?
like my Aquarian dream,
Yeah.
like that's so natural to me. Like that will
Yeah.
be the ideal.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So tell me, I'm curious just to hear, I've never spoken to a 50, harmony core. What's your like Aquarian dream? What would harmony look like for you when all consciousness is operating in
You
perfect
know,
order?
yeah, the word consciousness, like for me it would be ideal that we all level up, in that consciousness and awareness that we are a whole, and create a better society, and build all those values of empathy, compassion. That's so natural to us, but at the same time so far from our,
Mm,
when we don't do we don't have the awareness, when we don't practice it, it
mhm,
goes away super quick, and from this path that I walk, I found that makes a lot of difference when you relate to people, when you want to build something, when you want to be honest, and in the end, maintain I mean, I don't know if maintain, like build or help build that equilibrium or harmony in your environment and society in the end. And I love this one, the tribal, because it's tribal but extends, tribe by tribe
mm,
creates a society and humanity in the end. So yeah, that's one of my biggest ideals, like
mm.
I don't know, it's just love in the end, I guess,
Yeah,
and respect.
yeah,
I don't know,
yeah.
all those beautiful things.
All the usual but it's so funny because it's always a cliche, but when you have
Yeah.
an embodied experience of the cliche, you know that that cliche has meaning, and that it's real. And I just love everything you said, because you're like, yeah, it's natural to us. And it is like we all have the gene key 50, like, or we all have a genetic imprinting of the city of harmony. We just aren't expressing it. And the what the shadow speaks to is just when we're in fear, when we're in pain, and that's kind of right now, we're especially because of social media and globalization, we're able to see just how in pain some places are and some people are. But what is natural to us, why it's even painful? Because what if it was natural for us to be in hierarchy? Then we wouldn't be having an issue. Then this wouldn't be a problem if this was just our natural whatever. But because it's not, because we are genetically wired for order and harmony, but not in like a weird, fascist communist way, but in like a beauty, light, truth. We are all equals because we are all consciousness, because we are all a source kind of way. That's why something like corruption does feel painful. Because we're genetically wired for harmony, so it is natural to us, like you're saying, and that is where we're headed. So I love it. So cool. Thank you for sharing your Aquarian dream with us. um so you're a line 3 here. So I'm also a line 3. The wound is the line is going to speak to the core wound and the medicine. And so the wound here is shame. And it happens after line 2 is denial. So after denial, after we've denied this pain, there's going to be a tendency to self-blame and feel shame for being so blind to your own pain and patterns. So you might be an overachiever that tries to fill their life with accomplishments to cover up the deep sense of shame and self-loathing. And so it's very, you're a line 3 consciously, you have a line 6 as well in your profile. Like, that feeling of like, as a line 3, you experiment, you try something new, and then it doesn't work out. And you're like, oh, I should have known better. I've already tried this before. I should have, like, I've had a similar experience to this. Like, I'm so stupid. Why did I try that? It's this shame of like, I should have known better. Like, I can't believe I didn't see this. I should have been smarter. It's the experimenter, the scientist. Like, we really do like shit on ourselves a lot because we're like, I should have just known better. And so a lot of, yours, and I say also mine, because I also have a line 3 here. It's like our pain is like this deep feeling of like, I should have just known better. And it's so shameful and embarrassing to feel like we could have avoided this in the first place, this sort of pain. And it's our fault because we got ourselves into this through this experimenting or whatever. And so the medicine is the medicine of humor. So, in order to transcend shame, we must be able to laugh at ourselves. And it's a laughter of self love and integrated vulnerability and lightness. That's it's the laughter of someone that knows, a knowing laughter of like, dude, I've been there before. It's all good. Like, I too have, I don't know, shit myself in public or whatever. Like, like it's kind of like I've been there, I've survived it, it's happened. And this frequency of healing humor allows us to be witnessed and seen and accepted. One of the ways that shame can dissolve is through having that shame be witnessed, and particularly witnessed by ourselves, but also by another, because essentially nothing's going to happen. It's like if you tell me your deepest, darkest pain and I still say, Gina, you're still loved, then all of a sudden that shame has no power, because all the power it had before was like, this is horrible and embarrassing and shameful, and like, and that's the power that it has over you. But if it's not actually horrible, and it means that you're not worthy of love. But if it doesn't have that power, and you just showed it to me or whoever, your partner, whoever, and it was witnessed, and you're still worthy of love at the end of that day, the shame has no power, essentially. And so, but in order to be witnessed, we have to be able to like laugh at ourselves a little bit and like be like, oh yeah, like it's okay, like this is funny, or this was okay, or it's fine, like I don't need to shit on myself so much, and try to fill my life with accomplishments. Like it's truly okay and good, and I'm going to move on, and I'm probably going to fail again, and I'm going to try again. And that's actually my magic as a line 3, is to try all the things and then be able to learn. And some of that is going to be through trial and error, and error and mistake. Okay, that was a lot of beating that horse right into the ground. Any thoughts here on the line of the core?
Hmm. Yeah, I feel I've tapped into the humorous part of life. Yeah, and that's been also an exercise coming back to Chile, try
Mm,
to laugh a little bit more on the things I see, the
yeah,
how the system works, from understanding these the values coming from
yeah.
this game. But also goes, I was just thinking of my gay 30, my conscious son, and the lightness and the humor,
Mm.
like allow myself to be more free in my own experience from, it's not that important, like, um, yeah. Uh,
Yeah, not that big of a deal. Yeah,
yeah,
totally.
that's the thing. Yeah. And
Cool.
I felt that my line 3 has been my environment, my family environment has been very considerate with it my whole
Yeah.
life. I have never been pushed to perform a certain way, or not to make mistakes. But anyway, it's the self-perception, like, oh, I don't have a clear path, until now, but it's been my, as a 3-6, after the
Hmm.
30 years old, I started to, understand where I was going.
Hmm.
So I can see things with more humor.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, definitely.
Amazing. Well, we have finished your Venus sequence. I'm just going to do a quick recap, and then I just want to hear how you're feeling and anything else that has come up, and we'll call it a day. So, we have your sphere of purpose. This is the place where you're being asked to commit to really being who you are so that you can actually have fulfilling relationships instead of pretending to be someone else. This is like committing to who you really are, and who you really are is this beautiful gift of style and this visionary, this person that your trust in life, as we were saying, this is where we talked about the trust, helps others to trust themselves. And that ability to be grounded in your own process and timing and your own unique style of contributing to things is what is going to allow you to find that core stability, which is stability in who you are, and then that ability to be in relationship. And what's going to stop you is feeling judgmental and feeling mediocre, not good enough, or not interesting enough. And from there you're going to start to attract the right people and the things and the lessons and things into your life. And what's going to stop you is that inertia, that overwhelm, the victim of the details, and also feeling trapped and feeling like you have to manipulate in order to get the things that you want, because it's so overwhelming. But the most attractive you can be to the right things and really claiming your desires from that pure innocent place of, I don't know, I just want it just feels like a desire of my heart, is when you're connected to the power of the infinitesimal, that determination of just one step forward at a time. I can do this. I'm invincible. And that will allow you to also feel sensual and feel masterful in your attraction. And then from there, we're going to navigate this interesting path of mind, emotions, soul, back to the core. And we're seeing here that in your mind, the challenges are going to be defensiveness and opinion, and either being self-critical or having to fight to death to defend your one opinion, because there's only one opinion that rules, versus instead you have actually a very practical mind that can really bring like clarity to issues that seem like they're never going to be solved. And you actually have that mental empathy that we were talking about. You can actually step into another's mind and see things from a different perspective. You know that there's not just one opinion that is right, and therefore you can have space for all. Emotionally, obscurity and meanness is what's going to stop you. So feeling like, you go into your mind, the rug's been pulled out from under you, and then you shut down. The fear of rejection is going to be a big reaction to emotional triggers, and it's going to have you shut down your heart and be cold. But actually this beautiful idealism, this idealistic, Aquarian vision, for the rest of the world. And part of that is emotional idealism, of that we can all really be connected, and who you really are is actually this super kind, open-hearted person. Like, your nature is to be warm and inviting and loving, and to bring people together rather than shut them off. And finally, at a spiritual level, you really want to give yourself as much time and space as you need. Maybe going back, doing some reparenting meditations, and giving little Gina as much time and space as she needed back in the day. But more importantly, also still do this now, and just know that the highest expression of your heart is this beautiful sacred trickster energy of invisibility, and doing, your little sacred jokes with God and with the universe. And the greatest pain is this feeling of corruption, of deep inherent wrongness and unfairness and injustice and environmental disharmony. And that feels like shame. Maybe it's your fault. Maybe you should have known better. But through the healing frequency of humor, and knowing that you were doing your best, and this is just part of the process, you can find that greatest creative impulse is talent, of equilibrium, of harmony, of groundedness, and equality, essentially. And that is your core wound. That is your Venus sequence. Any final thoughts, or how are you feeling? What's come up? We went way over, as we typically do with the Venus sequence. What's coming up for you?
Yeah, I feel it was like like a recap of my life.
Yes.
It definitely touches on wounds and things that comes to me here or there, like the shadows and stuff. And I can see how I've stepped into the gift of a few, or I tend to, find balance there sometimes, which makes me proud, like I've walked a path to get there. And yeah, it also like put emphasis in things that I still need to process, a lot of more spheres to contemplate. And yeah, I've never explored myself this sequence in depth, so
Mm.
that's why I thought it was a great idea to explore it with you, Maria. So thank you very much.
Yay. Oh my gosh, thank you. I love doing this with you. This was such a good conversation, and I feel like I got a lot out of hearing your interpretations of these keys as well. I don't have any of those in my chart. So it was fun to like hear, a lived experience of these. So thank you. And yeah, just to finish off, you know where to find me. This is a place where you can share if you loved it. And we can chat further in the DMs and everything like that. And I'll just end with this for everyone that's listening. If you love this reading, my calendar at this exact second is not open, but you can always send me a DM if you want to book a reading further in the future. But if you want to learn how to do readings like this for folks, then you can definitely join my program, The Master Key, which is open for enrollment right now, starting on October 16th. And I'll teach you how to do readings like this for people. And that is everything that I wanted to say for today. All right, I'm going to stop this recording now. So bye. See you guys later. Gina, do you want to say anything before we end to the people?
Oh, thanks, Maria. Thanks, everyone, for listening to my reading. And yeah, follow Maria, give her
Oh.
love in her podcast. She's so good. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Holy cannoli! 2 hours later, you're here. I hope you enjoyed that Venus sequence reading. And like I was saying at the end, if you want to learn how to do readings like this for yourself, or you want to learn how to do readings like this for other people, and you really want to have a grasp and a mastery of the gene keys, hologenetic profile, and all the teachings of the Golden Path and the 64 gene keys, then my Gene Keys reader training, the Master Key, is for you. It is open for enrollment right now. We close enrollment Friday the 13th. And you can find out all the information in the link below, or just go to my Instagram at by Maria Henning, send me a DM and I'll send you the link. All right. If you have any questions, send me a DM as well over on Instagram. But if not, then I will see you in that program when we begin on October 16th. All right, my friends, see you next time. All right, my friend, thanks for joining me on another ride aboard the Shortcuts to Mastery spaceship. You can get started on your human design and Gene Keys journey with me today for free by going to mariahenning.com/chart, which is linked below. If you're a visuals lover as well as an audiophile, then definitely join the party over on Instagram at @ByMariaHenning for lots of fun and beautiful educational content. And to tag me in the stories with the episodes you listen to so I can repost you. And of course, if you're here, you know it totally rocks for podcasts to receive great ratings. So if you're feeling warm and fuzzy and want to share, I'd be eternally grateful. I can't wait to connect again. Thanks for being here. And until next time, here's to everything going easier, better, and faster than expected.